Spider-Man has had a plethora of live-action appearances, people. He's had 3 separate universes of stories, each at least 2 movies long, and then for some reason, his villains also got their own universe worth of movies as well. There's just so much Spider-Man live-action content at this point, it's kind of absurd when you look at it. With all of these films though, I wondered to myself, is it possible to make the perfect, the greatest live-action Spider-Man franchise of all time? You look at the movies and none of them are really too accurate, but what if we could take bits and pieces from each and every Spider-Man live-action film, and we were able to make the best adapted Spider-Man franchise of films ever made? That's going to be the goal for this video today, ladies and gentlemen. Everything Spider-Man live-action is on the table. We're going to be picking and pulling from everything. I mean, we'll be pulling from Tom Holland's universe, Tobey Maguire's, Andrew Garfield's, the freaking Sonyverse even will pull from. All of it is on the table. Only live action stuff though. We won't actually be including Spider-Verse stuff because that's just broken. Spider-Verse stuff is just the best. So we're only using the live action stuff, okay? With these 14 different films, can we make the perfect Spider-Man adaptation? Can we? We're gonna find out now. But before we start this video, I just have to ask you guys, what do you think would take to be the perfect Spider-Man live action adaptation? Which Spider-Man would you use? Whose Green Goblin would you use? Would you even use Green Goblin? Would you start off with Venom? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'm gonna just start this video right about now. Well, where do we start over here? Well, we'd have to pick our Spider-Man, right? First and foremost, you have to have a Spider-Man. I love all 3 of these live-action Spider-Mans we've gotten so far, and for various differing reasons. Tom actually reminds me of like a teenage Spider-Man. Tobey really feels like the responsibility gravitas is like down pat for him. And Andrew Garfield is the high-flying, funny, energetic Spider-Man. They all, to me, offer great things about Spider-Man that are accurate to the comics. But they also all have their major inaccuracies as well. To me, I feel as though Tobey's Spider-Man is too nerdy and weak. Spider-Man originally was young and fiery, right? He was fighting back against his bullies. Sure, he was still a nerd, but he actively refused to hang out with others as much as they kind of wanted to outcast him. He then grows into a more suave and relaxed person, but I don't think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man really exemplifies this too well. His character, as aforementioned, is a bit nerdier and lamer. He says some dialogue I personally can't believe a teenager in New York living in Queens would ever say in the great year of 2002. Who's saying G in a sentence? Golly, that's how he be talking. For me, he just has a bit too much of the nerdiness in him. And he doesn't even have web shooters. Organic webbing? Come on, that can't be in our perfect Spider-Man film. Let's look at Tom. Tom, on the other hand, is very heavily influenced by pop culture and the people around him, which I find a bit inaccurate about Spider-Man. First off, Spider-Man doesn't really work with other superheroes so easily. He's not eager to work with them, nor is he excited to work with them really in canon. He's more like, ugh, I'm my own guy. I'm trying to do my own thing. If you need me, I guess I'll help, but come on, guys, let me be me. So for Tom Holland's Spider-Man to actively be like, oh my god, it's Iron Man. Oh my god, it's Captain America. Actually, Captain America is fair. That one's a little bit more fair. But for him to be like, oh my god, it's Iron Man. Oh my god, it's the Avengers. Like, no, he really does not care for the Avengers. He doesn't give a damn, honestly. They're just more superheroes, much like him. So why is he starstruck? He's the best of them, in my opinion. With all that being said, and we look at Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, it's hard, in my opinion, not to select him as our Spider-Man. He's funny, he's high-flying, he's got the backstory, he's got his Uncle Ben still there, he's very smart, he actually has web shooters. This is gonna be our Spider-Man for the perfect franchise. I know a lot of you are probably pissed, a lot of you Tobey supporters, but come on. Y'all saw No Way Home as much as I did. We all watched No Way Home. Andrew Garfield was by far and away the best Spider-Man. When you put all 3 of them on the screen together, it's like, oh, well, that one's definitely Spider-Man. Among all the funniness and the high-flyingness and the accurateness, what I think the best part about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is he just keeps pushing, right? I really feel like this is what Spider-Man is supposed to be all about. Like, he doesn't really get much reprieve. Yeah, it's nice when he gets a good day or he has something good happen to him because he was a good guy. But most of the time, he's just being a good guy because he thinks he has to, regardless of what happens to him. Like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's parents died, keeps pushing. His uncle died, keep pushing. His girlfriend's dad died protecting him, keep pushing. His girlfriend died, keep pushing. Through all the traumatic experiences and despair, Andrew Spider-Man never stops trying to be himself and to be Spider-Man. To me, this is the most quintessential thing about being Spider-Man. Loss is going to happen, but you have to take it in stride and keep pushing. We have our Spider-Man, so continuing on, we have to select a villain and a love interest for the very first Spider-Man film. I actually think the way that Raimi did the first Spider-Man film is a pretty great blueprint on starting a Spider-Man story. Like the Green Goblin, the original Spider-Man film, is amazing. Willem Dafoe killed it. There's no reason for us to change it. We're not switching to Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin. Why would we do that? There's no reason to. Norman Osborn, first and foremost, should also always start as Green Goblin before Harry even gets to be Green Goblin. So there's just no reason for us to even look at Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin because It doesn't really make sense why it even happens. When you watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I didn't even think it felt good. It felt super forced. I just didn't personally like him as Harry or as the Green Goblin. If he's supposed to be Peter's best friend, how come there's no mention of him in the first Spider-Man movie with Andrew Garfield, you know? If he's supposed to be Peter's best friend, why is he kind of such a cock when they first meet each other? And he's just so quick to turn on him, too. I get he's got this life-dangerous, threatening illness, but Spider-Man just wants to take time before he can save him. He's not on death's door right now. I don't know, man. We're definitely going to go with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin because this man is sinister and evil, and he just feels so much more like the Green Goblin. Outside of his costume, which is a bit lame. But Dane DeHaan's costume is even worse. Green Goblin is an actual costume. It's not a robot suit, nor is it like just a green affliction making somebody have jaundice. Nevertheless, William Dafoe clears by far. Head and shoulders clears Dane DeHaan, so he's going to be the villain for our movie. The love interest in the first film, in my opinion, it should start with Gwen. Like, are we going to be honest, guys? We should totally be honest with ourselves. It should totally be Gwen. There's no way around it. It has to be Gwen. If we're going to try and be as accurate as possible, it just has to be Gwen. I don't like Gwen as much as the next guy, but her character is so important to Spider-Man's growth. When she dies, he learns he can't save everybody, and getting involved in superhero business could hurt his loved ones, even without them wanting to be hurt. Out of all the Gwens we have, we really just have the two, of my knowledge. It's Bryce Dallas Howard and Emma Stone. Tom Holland didn't have a Gwen, to my knowledge. Out of these two Gwens, oddly enough, both of these two redheads would have been a great MJ, in my opinion. They would have made phenomenal MJs. But out of these two Gwens, I think it's without a doubt Emma Stone is the better character. It's not super accurate, but neither of them are. The Gwen in the Raimi films is just like a plot device. She hardly does anything, and she's just moving the plot along. Emma Stone's Gwen is more fleshed out. Her character doesn't share the same traits as comics Gwen, but like she's actually a real character. And yes, I'll even say it out loud, Emma Stone's Gwen in this movie really does feel more like MJ from the comics. She's just so willing to help Spider-Man with his battles, and that's just not something you really see Gwen Stacy do in the comics. But that's not going to change the fact that I think Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is well above Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen Stacy. Again, it's just my opinion. I think we have to go with this, especially when you look at the fact that Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's synergy, you know, they're the rapport these two have on set together, their chemistry, it's undeniable. We need to have them two together for our perfect franchise. So our first film is, we got the main core for the first film, right? We have a Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. We have a Gwen Stacy and Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. And we have a Green Goblin and William Dafoe's Green Goblin so far. We're looking pretty good. Who would be the secondary characters for this film, though? I think the Raimi universe is pretty freaking good with selecting supporting characters, whereas the other two films kind of just strayed away from it. Like when you look at the Raimi films, you got J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, you got Aunt May's amazing, she's probably the best, Uncle Ben is the best, Roby only appears in this universe, Harry I think only appears in this universe because Dane DeHaan's not really Harry, let's be real with ourselves guys, he just shows up to be the villain. The only change I would make out of the whole supporting cast friend group, aside from them being the Raimi characters, is I would make Flash the Flash from the Amazing Spider-Man universe instead of Raimi's universe. To me, this is a more accurate comic Flash. He's also more sympathetic than Raimi's Flash. He also is not a douchebag bully like Raimi's Flash. Flash is so much more than that, man. The Amazing Spider-Man Flash gave us little glimpses of him being a good guy, which is exactly what Flash is. Plus, he's a huge Spider-Man fanboy. That's exactly who Flash is. This Flash would also be better set up for antics later down the line in like a future film, potentially maybe an Agent Venom kind of thing, in my opinion. I just like this guy playing Flash Thompson, and we lost big time not getting more of him. Lastly, we have to make the tough decision for MJ. And I think the main love interest in this film should be Gwen, without a doubt, because Gwen is Peter Parker's first love interest. But like MJ should totally be in the film still. And she got to work her way into like being the main love interest throughout the franchise because that's who MJ is. The two MJs we get to choose from between are Zendaya and Kirsten Dunst. Now more than ever, I wish I could choose the Spider-Verse MJ, because man, did I love the Spider-Verse MJ. But she's not live action, so we only have Zendaya, Kirsten Dunst. Zendaya, Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten cheated on every partner she had when she was MJ. Okay. Zendaya is kept to herself and is quiet and is a genius and is now going, unlike MJ. I don't think either of these two are close to being MJ, sadly, from the comics. But out of the two, for me, it's got to be Zendaya. Kirsten Dunst spent time in literally all three of these films being a damsel in distress, not really fighting back as MJ. And as I've said earlier, MJ fights back. She's like Loki, a superhero with no powers. She beat the freaking chameleon with a baseball bat. She saw a robot rolling down the street to get Spider-Man. She jumps out with a baseball bat and swings at the robot too. Like, MJ is really down for she's down for the shindig, you know what I'm saying? She's down with the business. And Zendaya, I feel like, showed off more of that than Kirsten Dunst. While Kirsten Dunst was yelling constantly while being a damsel in distress, when Zendaya was faced with being shot by Mysterio's drones, she picked up a freaking mace or a, what is that, Nighting Star, something like that? Morning Star, some stuff, and bams on the thing, just smashes it into the floor. That felt way more like MJ than kind of anything Kirsten Dunst MJ did other than Riz up Peter. I kind of like that too, because, you know, MJ does Riz up Peter a bit in the comics. But overall, we have to just acknowledge the fact that MJ's not a damsel in distress. She's very powerful herself, and Zendaya did a better job at that than Kirsten Dunst. So the first film is pretty much set up perfectly. The origin story, similar to Remy's origin story. Obviously, it's going to be Andrew nowadays instead of Toby, and he would also have web shooters as well. The main love interest in the first film would be Gwen, and Norman's Goblin arc would obviously happen naturally. You have Gwen, MJ, Peter, Flash, and Harry. They would all be friends after high school ends because Peter would only be in high school for a very short bit of time, much like the Remy movies, because I thought that was great. And we have a very good start to this franchise, man. The one thing this movie needs to have, because I'm not going to go into every little bit of detail, you know, I'm not going to go into like writing a screenplay for you, being like, well, then they'll go to the coffee shop, and then Gwen will say to MJ how great her outfit looks, and MJ will say, Flash Thompson, I love your hair. Like, no, I'm not going to write a screenplay for all the dialogue for you guys. Like, I'm just going to ask you guys to assume there's going to be great moments and interactions between the group we have, you know what I mean? The homies, the friend group. Flash, Harry, MJ, Gwen, Peter, all of them together hanging out. Like, they have some of their own moments, and they gotta have that, because I think having these little instances, this dialogue between the side characters, it means so much to these movies. It breathes life into them. It makes it feel like Spider-Man. That's what I think the Remy movies just did so much better than any other Spider-Man film that's live action ever even attempted to do. The one thing I will say that we do have to add to this first film that is not originally in this first film is we're adding the night Gwen Stacy died into this film. It's done in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so it's totally on the table. We can pull stories out from other movies. That's fair game. So we're going to use the night Gwen Stacy died, except for this time, William Dafoe's Green Goblin is going to kill Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, and it's going to feel iconic as hell. I mean, like, it was crazy that Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin killed Gwen. Don't get me wrong, it was crazy. But it just didn't feel as good as it could have, right? Because this Green Goblin didn't feel like the Green Goblin. He didn't feel too menacing. He just feels like he popped up out of nowhere. If you have William Dafoe's Green Goblin tossing Emma Stone off of the bridge, my God, I'd probably still be crying to this day over a decade later. This would just be so freaking, like, breathtaking. I would be heartbroken, but come on, this would be so good, man. So good. This is the Gwen and the Green Goblin. Like, we need this. With the death of Gwen Stacy, we naturally would be able to have MJ step up to be more of a prominent character in the next franchise, in the next film in the franchise. I also think this would be a great way to actually set up the black suit arc as well. And it would be Peter in the first film, at the end of the first film, getting it. We obviously can't use Battleworld because Battleworld's never been done in live action. So out of all the symbiote arcs we can do, there's literally only one, so we'd have to start with Peter's arc. And it'd be similar to Spider-Man 3, except for MJ wouldn't be there, right? Peter would just get the black suit in the park, fall asleep, maybe wake up, and that would probably be the end of the film, right? Because we want people to leave around waiting for more. I wouldn't say like he's got the black suit completely on him. He just has it inside of him, and that's how the movie ends. Because we're going to move to the second film, okay? We're going to move into the second film, and we got to look at the cast of characters we get to choose from, okay? Personally, like I said, Remy was doing his thing when he made this trilogy, when he had Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Venom. I think they're Spider-Man's big three villains, so I'm going to not change that, except for the fact that I'm also going to add Electro's Jamie Foxx into this film as well as Doc Ock. The reason I would do this is because I think it's very good, like the Master Planner story, and it reminds me of the Master Planner story specifically from Spectacular Spider-Man, in which it's Electro and Doc Ock. I think it'd be sick to try and replicate this again with like their live action counterparts. This would be No Way Home's Electro. This one's significantly the better version of the character out of the two between The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and No Way Home. I would certainly say this film needs to have Ock and Electro. I would like to diversify the film's villains. I want more villains on the big screen. Spider-Man would have the black suit, and he would slowly take more and more of a toll on his body throughout this movie, okay? Except for this time, I wouldn't have the black suit actually make him angry. I just think that's overdone. It never actually happened in the comics. I would actually just have the black suit keep him tired. The suit just fights crime for him at night, and he doesn't really remember much of it, okay? And then while all this is happening, he would essentially become like a zombie of himself throughout the film because the suit is just making him so exhausted because it's fighting crime and he's not actually getting any sleep. Until he ultimately removes the suit just like Tobey Maguire did in Spider-Man 3. This would be different from pretty much every single adaptation of the black suit because it would actually be accurate. It would actually not cause him any actual emotional distress besides the fact that he's just exhausted all the time. And then he would fear for his life when he realizes that there's an alien symbiote living inside of him. Throughout Spider-Man's time as the black suit Spider-Man while he's asleep fighting crime, a reporter, Eddie Brock, believes Spider-Man is at fault for all the new destruction in the city. And he's going to make a story about how Spider-Man is a villain, right? And how Spider-Man's evil. However, I think it would also be great in this film to have, and it'd probably be pretty goofy, but it'd be pretty fire, to have Eddie Brock, or at least Spider-Man, in a lie detector test. And because he was asleep and he doesn't remember of it, he actually passes the lie detector test, which is what gets Eddie Brock fired from his job, making him a disgraced writer or reporter. Even though he didn't actually make the mistake, like it wasn't actually his fault, he did lose the lie detector test because there's no way for Peter to know that he did those things. He doesn't even know he's lying. So this would disgrace Eddie Brock, and he would be like a disgraced reporter in New York City. This would also be the first instance that tips Spider-Man off to the fact that he's not actually in control of his powers. Spider-Man would then do his research, figure out what the black suit is, and remove it in the church, like I said. At the same time, Eddie Brock goes to the church to kill himself, seeing no future in his life now that he can't be a reporter. Eddie Brock, much like the comics, would become Venom in the very church he goes to kill himself. The movie itself would continue in another direction, MJ and Peter growing closer, and even start dating by the end of the film. Naturally, you'd have Spider-Man back in the high-flying red and blue. He takes down Doc Ock and Electro in some awesome epic fight, and he ends up with MJ. They're happy together watching TV on the couch. And that would probably be pretty much the end of the second film, except for the after-credit scene. The after-credit scene would then be shot in the very dark viewpoint of very mean lenses. You're looking through somebody's eyes and they look angry, and he's swinging through the city very fast. It pulls out and it's Venom. He's actually at Peter Parker's apartment. While MJ and Peter are watching TV inside, the last shot shows Venom head in the window behind them, just staring at them. Now we need to talk about a big thing, right? The next big thing. Who would we have play Venom? Topher Grace or Tom Hardy? Under the guise of this movie, we would actually want a villain Venom, but we can use whichever plot line from whichever one and put it on the other. So for me personally, I would give the nod to Tom Hardy's Venom, but I would use Topher Grace's evil storyline. I personally just feel like Tom Hardy plays a better Eddie Brock. And I also think the way that Tom Hardy's Venom looks is infinitely better than Topher Grace's Venom. We need to put the insignia on his chest, of course, because he needs to have that spider logo. If you call it a dragon, I'm gonna. Because this design is freaking peak with the spider logo. Maybe throw in some patches on his hand too, and we would really be talking about peak. Tom Hardy's Venom with the logo as a villain waiting outside Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's apartment while he and Zendaya's MJ are inside. Wow, what a weird thing to imagine in our head. But honestly, it's peak. It's like Mount Everest type of peak. Especially with the ending we got. We are now at the trilogy finale, right? The next movie. And things would start in the heat of things. Venom perched up outside the window where he's waiting. He's about to pounce on Spider-Man. However, I think the bell should go off and it should alert Venom and he gets startled, maybe falls off the building a bit and he has to get his bearings. At the same time, Peter's oh, it must be 9 o'clock, or it must be 8 o'clock. I should probably run out and grab some groceries before, we head to bed. So Peter would leave his apartment and run and grab groceries, and then we would get the iconic scene from the comics. I do believe it's Amazing Spider-Man 301. It might be number 300, in which MJ gets terrified to death by Venom. This would be perfect. Venom's interrogating her, where did Parker go? Where is he? This, that, and the third. It's exactly like Venom stuff from the comics, 616 Peak. Naturally, Venom wouldn't hurt her because that's not his thing. He would leave, and then obviously Spider-Man, Peter Parker, arrives back. He sees MJ's crying. She tells him about the dark mirror version of him that exists. Spider-Man's how is this possible? Spider-Man suits up to go find the monster, but when he's out and about, he runs into Cletus Cassidy about to burn down an orphanage. Remember, this is not Carnage, it's just Cletus. The only live-action Cletus we have is Woody Harrelson, so we have to use Woody Harrelson. I wish we could use Matthew Lillard. That's my man's 100 grand. But we're going to have to go with Woody Harrelson, sadly. Spider-Man would stop him and web him up, but then, without his spider sense going off, he gets jumped by Venom. The two fight, and Venom reveals he knows who he is, and he shows his face. Peter's what do you want? And Venom's everyone to see the monster you are. Obvious classic Spider-Man and Venom stuff. Venom truly believes that Spider-Man is the cause for all of his problems. He thinks Spider-Man's a villain, and he wants to show the world that Spider-Man's a villain. Venom himself doesn't really think himself as a villain. He's just doing what he thinks is right for the people. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's getting beat down on the rooftops, but then a plane goes by, Frequency messes with Venom's suit, and Spider-Man manages to escape. Spider-Man races to his apartment, and he grabs MJ, and the two of them leave. Spider-Man recognizes the frequency that hurt the symbiote, and he begins tweaking and working on equipment to hurt Venom. MJ naturally wants in, and she wants to help Spider-Man. Spider-Man's like, nah, you can't be doing this. It's too dangerous. But then MJ's like, my life's in danger too. He came looking for me too. And Spider-Man begrudgingly gives her some weaponry. You know, he wants to protect her, but he fears that she might be in trouble if she gets into danger. It's a very Spider-Man-like situation. You would have Spider-Man race with MJ over to Aunt May's house so the two of them have a safe place to stay at for the time being. While Venom is also shown like checking notable places that Peter Parker frequents. You know, he's checking Peter Parker's apartment again, looking for him, checking the Daily Bugle, looking for him, checking Feast, looking for him, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Finally, he's on his way to Aunt May's house, and that's when Venom runs into Shocker, who's sticking up people in the streets. I think this is very good and important to show that Venom is not actually that bad of a person in his own eyes. Venom would like jump in as like Shocker is trying to rob people, and Venom would literally like eat his leg off or something. The family runs and screams, and Venom's just like, you're welcome. I didn't mean to scare them. I think it's a perfect way to show that Venom doesn't realize how evil he looks and how menacing he's being while he's actually trying to do something nice. I think that's a perfect way to show off Venom as a character, especially when you look at 616. That commonly happens. Jumps in to save innocents, and they run from him after they're saved because they're scared. Makes sense. By the time Venom makes it to Aunt May's house, MJ and Peter are ready to fight. Spider-Man's locked in. MJ's locked in. The two have an incredible battle with Venom with like all these cool stuff, the sirens going off, the frequencies. They finally win, and Venom gets locked up next to Cletus Cassidy. The film is fire. The franchise would be fire if this is how it was coming to a close, kind of, right? Because then you would show Cletus Cassidy with the shank made about to kill Eddie, while Eddie's working out, noticing the symbiote is still in him. Peak stuff right here, right? Because then you can totally do a Carnage storyline moving forward. Picture it kind of like the 90s cartoon where Venom just breaks out of jail. He's like, I'm good. Get me out of here. Just like that, essentially. No Mordo or anything. That or Dormammu. That wouldn't be a thing. But it would be a lot like that. And then there would obviously be an after credit scene, right? And I think we should have Harry inspect his father's stuff, realizing he's the Green Goblin as he debates donning the mantle. And that's it. That is what I would make the perfect Spider-Man trilogy. It sets itself up to having more stuff future down the line if it wants to. It could tell more stories down the line if it needs to, but it also closes its own story in a nice little bow. You'd have Spider-Man end with MJ. It's Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man ending with Zendaya's MJ. You'd have Tom Hardy's Venom in jail. William Dafoe's Green Goblin would be dead. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock would be in jail, as would Electro be in jail. You would have Harry Osborn debating if he should don the villain mantle. Carnage is on the rise, or he could be coming out soon. Like, you could do more, or you could let it go away. It'd be the perfect place for this Frankenstein-like monster type of amalgamation of Spider-Man to be. I'm not gonna lie though, even with all this monstrosity sewing up stuff together of a franchise, I think this would be beautiful. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man fighting Tom Hardy's Venom. William Dafoe's Green Goblin killing Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. God, that sounded morbid. Zendaya's MJ helping Spider-Man be a hero. It's kind of peak. You could also do classic storylines in the future. We had Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven. I don't hate him that much if he had some good writing. Maybe him fighting versus Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man in a Kraven Last Hunt movie could have been great. We also have Chameleon we could use if we wanted to. We could have MJ beat him with a baseball bat at some point. You know, we could throw that in there. There's just so much stuff here that could have been done well and just like the comics if it wasn't bastardized by freaking Sony and Marvel so much. They just couldn't get their heads out of their ass to make a good, solid franchise, whether it be the Sony franchise or this new Tom Holland franchise. Even the Amazing Spider-Man franchise got canceled. Outside of Remy's Spider-Man, we really haven't had a holistically godlike Spider-Man franchise, in my opinion. And that's truly just tragic, man. If this was the Spider-Man we all got to see when we grow up, I don't think we would have even seen a different universe. I think they would have just kept this thing going until the wheels fell off. Andrew Garfield would be looked at as like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Oh man, we really missed out big time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and my idea of a better cinematic universe for Spider-Man. I had fun making it. Shout out to all the Patreon supporters out there. I really appreciate you guys helping me, supporting me, doing what I want to do, and getting to do what I love to do for you guys. If you would like to join in and request your own video, you can. Just subscribe to the Patreon, DM me on Patreon or my Discord, and you can request a video. I will edit and make an entire video just for you if you subscribe to the Patreon. That's about it for me in this video. I really enjoyed making it. I had a blast. I hope you guys did too. Dunk out. Peace.